A couple weeks back, I got a book in the mail called Deadly Times, the 1910 bombing of the Los Angeles Times and America's Forgotten Decade of Terror, published by Alliance Press. And I wanted to have the author on, but I wanted to read it first. And I finally got around to it. And man, by page 12, I was in and couldn't put it down. And I cannot recommend this book highly enough because it's not only an incredible story in every way, shape, or form and an important part of Southern California history, it's really a cautionary tale for the polarized times in which we live today. We just saw, the freak out at LAX over a nut who shot up a TSA agent and was gunning for more. And of course, airports we know are terror targets. Back in the day, the Los Angeles Times building became the focal point of an organized labor plot to dynamite their way to union jobs. Joining us right now is the author of Deadly Times, and it's a pleasure to welcome to the show Lew Irwin. Lew, how are you?
Oh, great, and you?
I'm fine, sir, and thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for writing this book. I'm telling you, Lew, this book is high on my list of must-reads for everybody. It's just an amazing story, and it's just a part of our history that so few people know about.
Oh, absolutely. People don't realize that the bombing of the L.A. Times was the deadliest crime ever committed in the state of California to this day, and the deadliest crime ever committed in history against journalists.
The Los Angeles Times in 1910 was owned and operated by a guy named Harrison Gray Otis. And Harrison Gray Otis was rabidly anti-union. And I know folks would find that shocking that at one time the LA Times was an anti-union paper, and the city of Los Angeles was really the most hostile to organized labor of any community in the country.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the Times was the voice of anti-labor in the United States, and it built Los Angeles just on that basis, cheap labor.
And if you were a union organizer or sympathetic to labor, you were blackballed and couldn't find employment. And San Francisco was exactly the opposite.
Yes, I mean the head of the piano tuners union was the mayor of the city for a while, and union representatives were essentially controlled the board of supervisors in San Francisco.
They still do, by the way. But this caused a conflict because San Francisco and Los Angeles had different wage structures. And business owners were moving their businesses from the northern part of California to Los Angeles because they wanted the cheaper wages. And it was really a house divided. Labor realized that California couldn't survive with San Francisco being a closed shop and Los Angeles being an open shop. And in Indianapolis was the Iron Workers Union, and the secretary and treasurer was a guy named J.J. McNamara, and he came up with a plan to do what?
The San Francisco people came to McNamara and said, look, you've got to do something to help us. They were aware of the fact that the Iron Workers Union was bombing buildings all over the country in order to assure that they would get union representation. And they went to Indianapolis, where the iron workers were located, and went to J.J. McNamara and made a deal. You know, we'll finance your bringing a guy out here and doing something about our problems in Los Angeles.
And the guy who came to Los Angeles was J.J. McNamara's brother, J.B. McNamara, who planted a bomb in the Los Angeles Times building in Ink Alley, which is where there were a bunch of ink barrels, 16 sticks of 80% grade dynamite set to go off at 1 a.m. And to ensure the lethality of this explosion, he actually went into the basement of the Times building and opened the gas valves to fill the building with gas, natural gas. And fully knowing that there was a third shift working, the building was filled with over 100 employees at the time. And he went beyond just trying to blow up the LA Times building, didn't he, Lew? He had bombs planted as assassination devices.
Oh, yeah. He had planted a bomb at General Lotus's residence and also at Z Handler's residence, the head of the Businessman's Association in L.A. And he was determined to murder Otis and his family and the Z Handler family and everybody who worked for them at their residences.
At 1:07 a.m. on October 1st, 1910, the bomb detonates, and at least 20 workers are either crushed or incinerated, 100 more gravely injured. And it didn't take long for the suspicion to immediately fall onto the unions because, again, for a number of years, organized labor had been bombing construction sites all across America with dynamite bombs. As you tell the amazing story of a guy named Oddie McManigal, who was the bomber who worked for the Ironworkers Union, but he had an odd sense of ethics in that he wouldn't bomb any place if there was a chance of actually injuring anybody, which is why he was probably
the most prolific bomber in world history. Probably committed at least 150 bombings himself.
But wouldn't do the LA Times job because he knew that this was murder.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, it's such an amazing read. The book is called Deadly Times, the 1910 bombing of the Los Angeles Times and America's Forgotten Decade of Terror, published by Alliance Press. And you can go to facebook.com/Deadly Times for pictures and more, and we'll post it on ours as well. Lew, in the time remaining, talk to us about how the issues of the day still resonate. We're talking about, we had Occupy Wall Street, the 1% versus 99%. This was a much more lethal version of that. And, of course, the whole issue of terror, which is something that we deal with on a daily basis, protecting ourselves against zealots who believe in a cause to the point where they have no sense of morality.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the reason that I wrote the book to begin with. It just seems so pertinent today that people know what happened then and can act on that. I mean, it goes back to the old saying that those who know nothing about history repeat it. Yeah, and we're doing exactly that. We see that in the polarization of society today. It's almost an exact copy of what occurred in 1910.
And of course, when a crime of this magnitude occurs, society has to protect itself against organized murderers. But on the other hand, then the pushback sometimes blinds us to social ills. I mean, the conditions of working men and women in America in 1910 were brutal. But by bombing the LA Times building, the McNamara brothers set back the cause of organized labor by 20 years.
Absolutely. The cause of labor was absolutely destroyed. It didn't. Labor didn't come back until the Roosevelt years, a generation later.
Well, the book is in stores. It's to me, it's a must read. Lew, good luck with it, and thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.